Today, we're going to build a bracket race 502 that'll live on pump gas and kill the competition.
Today on HorsePower TV, we'll set out to build a 502 600-horse big block bracket motor, complete with hydraulic roller cam and valve train, plus a set of Edelbrock Performer RPM heads, their dual plane air gap intake, and 800 CFM carb.
It's great to be here. I'm just happy to be alive.
In our race of the week, from a fiery near-fatal inferno to an incredible comeback in Motor City, you'll discover a veteran Pro Street racer's amazing triumph. So hang on for HorsePower TV.
Welcome to the shop. You know, the big block Chevy's been around since 1965 with a well-earned reputation for making lots of power and winning races. But it left its biggest mark on the street in cars like my 70 Chevelle SS right here. Now, this one came from the factory with a 375-horse 396 and a Muncie 4-speed. And of course, with a convertible body style, what you're looking at here is probably one of the rare Chevelles ever built.
Yeah, 70 was a good year, all right. Also the first year of the famed 454. And when you spec'd it out with the LS6 option, well, you had yourself 450 horsepower, the most of any production motor of that time. Well, these days, whether you're bracket racing or building a stout street machine, the 502 has become the benchmark. And today, we're going to build one here in the shop.
You bet. Now, we're starting with a GM Performance Parts short block 502 right out of the crate. And the reason that we like it is because it starts out with a bunch of good parts. For instance, check out the 4-bolt mains and the steel crank, plus the big rods with a 7/16" bolts. Now, up top here, it uses forged pistons, and hey, with parts like that, we've got a solid foundation for a 600-horse bracket race motor.
Yeah, one of these days we'll drop it into that 66 Bel Air bracket car you got at home. Now, the 502 comes from the factory with this oil pan that's really designed for trucks. In fact, right here is where it interferes with the cross member on most cars. So to make our 502 fit, we got this replacement pan from Moroso. Now, it's got side kickouts for more volume and extra ground clearance. But since the sump is not as deep as the factory pan, we're going to need to install this new pickup onto the oil pump. Now, we're dealing with an interference fit here, but I got a hot little tip that'll make the job easier. Put the pickup in the freezer for an hour or so, and put the pump in a 250-degree oven for about the same time. Then you can mate the two by gently tapping the pickup into the pump. There we are. Now, it's an old racer's trick to weld the two together here, but this one has a tab on it, so you can just bolt it right into place and it'll stay put.
Hey, man, that's a pretty cool tip there.
I'm glad you warmed up to it.
Oh, man. Now, before we put the pan back on, we're going to be replacing the camshaft with a bigger one. So let's get started by removing the balancer and the timing cover. Then the spider assembly, and finally the retainers and lifters. Now, with the timing set out of the way, the old camshaft just slides right out of here. There we go. Now, we're going to be replacing it with this Comp Cam's hydraulic roller piece, and, well, it's got a lot more lift and duration than the stocker that we just took out. Now, it makes its best power between 3,200 and 6,500 RPM, and since it's a roller, well, it gets the valves to max lift a lot quicker and holds them there for a longer period before snapping them shut. Now, just check out that big fat nose there. Coat the bearing journals with camshaft lube. Slide the camshaft home, being careful not to nick the bearings. Then reinstall the retainer plate.
Well, I guess we're ready for this thing now. We're using Comp Cam's single roller timing set. It's going to give us more accurate cam timing with less friction and more reliability. Now, it's got multiple key ways to advance or retard timing. We're going to install ours straight up. Okay, we just line up the dots, slide the sprocket into place. And notice how it's got this little button here. That makes degreeing the cam a lot easier. Let me take this Allen wrench and show you how it works. Put it in the button, turn it, and it turns the cam. Of course, we're going to put ours right there in the middle.
Before we bolt up the oil pan, I want to show you this one-piece gasket that we got from Felpro. Now, it's rubber, so it's reusable and a whole lot easier to install than those old quart gaskets. Now, I'm going to put a dab of silicone down in each corner here just to make sure everything seals up good.
Well, that buttons up our bottom end, but the bottom line is we need to take a short break. We'll be back with more of our 502 bracket buildup after this.
B&M spells performance. B&M has the ultimate shifters. Race or street, stick or automatic. B&M will shift your ride to the next level of performance. Log on now to bmracing.com or call for your free brochure.
Hey, welcome back to the shop and more of our 502 bracket motor buildup. Well, as you know, we started this project with a GM Performance Parts short block, added the new oil pan, timing set, and cam. Now it's time to take on the top end.
That's right, and we're going to cap off our cylinders with a set of Edelbrock Performer RPM heads. Now, they're available in either oval or rectangular port configurations, and, well, since we're going to be feeding a 502 cubic inch engine that'll probably see the high side of 6,500 RPM on a regular basis, well, we chose the larger rectangular port versions. Now, these heads have got combustion chambers that spec out at 118 cc's, which is going to end up giving us a pump gas friendly compression ratio of just over 9:1. Now, inside those combustion chambers, you're going to find valves that spec out at 219 on the intake and 188 on the exhaust. Over here on the intake runners, the long runner specs out at 315 cc's and the small one 300 cc's. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of runner, but I'll tell you what it does. It gives us the option of adding more cam timing later on should we decide we need it.
Well, now, just check out the intake manifold we're using. It's Edelbrock's RPM air gap for rectangular port heads. This dual plane design promotes mixture velocity and offers good throttle response. Now, it's open under the plenum with no heat crossover. And of course, that means a cooler, denser charge and more power.
We're going to seal the cylinder heads to the block with these Felpro Performance gaskets. Now, we like to use them because they'll seal things up real well with these silicone bead imprints around each one of the water passages and a stainless steel ring around each one of the combustion chambers.
Hey man, while you're there, why don't you stick around and help me?
Hey, it'd be my pleasure.
You know, the best head gaskets in the world won't help you unless you got the right hardware. So, to make sure our heads torque down evenly and hold their values, we're going to use some of these ARP bolts. Now, make sure you use some of their Molly Lube on them. That'll keep them from galling on you and give you an accurate torque reading.
Now, another reason that we like these head gaskets is because you can do a cold retorque on them. That is, you go ahead and torque the bolts down, then let them set for about 10 minutes and bust them loose and retorque them again. Now, since we're using aluminum heads, the torque value on those bolts is 60 foot-pounds.
Well, with the heads torqued down, we're ready for the rest of our comp cam's valve train. Since we're using a roller cam, we just need to lube up the lifters a little bit before we slide them home. Now, the 502 has tall lifter bores, so make sure that the spreader doesn't come in contact. Looks like we're okay here. Otherwise, you might have to clearance the block if there is interference. Next, we drop in the chromoly push rods, followed by our roller rockers. By the way, we're using a set of Pro Magnum roller rockers to complement our camshaft. They're made from 8650 chrome moly, which is 3 times stronger than aluminum and almost as light. That ought to give us the strength of stainless steel at a much more affordable price. Oh, by the way, to hold our valve lash settings, we're using these PermaLock rocker adjusters from ARP. Hey, great timing. I just got silicone on the ends here.
Hey, and it looks like you did a good job, too. Now, I'm going to drop this intake straight down on here. We don't want to move the gaskets. There we go. Now, we're going to be using stainless fasteners to hold the intake manifold down. Of course, anytime that you do, you want to go ahead and put a little bit of anti-seize on them. That way, those stainless fasteners won't gall inside the aluminum intake.
Say, we haven't told you about the carburetor we're using. To feed our 502, we ordered Edelbrock's new 800 CFM EPS carb, designed especially for high performance and large displacement motors.
Yeah, now besides that high flow capacity, here's something else that's pretty cool. You can change the jets, adjust the floats, and even swap out the needle and seat in this thing without draining the fuel. Now under here is a square flange, which means it's going to bolt up to just about any intake manifold.
Well, while Chuck bolts it up to ours, don't you bolt out the door. We're going to wind up our bracket motor buildup right after this.
Hey, welcome back to the windup of our 502 bracket motor buildup. You know, a good ignition will go a long ways towards helping us hit our horsepower mark, so we're using a complete MSD setup, including their Pro Billet distributor, 8.5mm superconductor wires, 40,000 volt blaster SS coil, and their digital 6 control box. Now, this is a brand new piece that is controlled by a microprocessor, and below 3,300 RPM it actually fires a series of sparks that'll burn in the combustion chamber for up to 20 degrees of crank rotation. Now, since we're going into a bracket racer with it, we'll be able to take advantage of its dual rev limiters and that single stage nitrous retard. With number 1 cylinder top dead center, we can go ahead and drop the distributor in. Then we can go ahead and measure and cut the plug wires to length. After slipping the boots on, you can strip the insulation and finally crimp the terminal.
Well, cooling down between rounds of racing won't be a problem with this Edelbrock aluminum water pump. It's got a CNC machine high-flow iron impeller inside, along with heavy-duty bearings to handle the high RPMs.
Well, speaking of high RPMs, we're going to need an efficient way to evacuate our exhaust, so we chose these Hooker Super Comps. Now, they've got 2-inch equal-length primaries that feed into this 3.5-inch collector down here. Plus, we popped for the optional ceramic coating. Now, that's going to help out their thermal efficiency and keep them looking good for a long time.
Yeah, well, here's something else that's going to look good on that motor, starting with the Chevrolet racing valve covers from GM Performance Parts. Their tall design clears most roller rockers and even a stud girdle if you want to use one. Now, we got ours with this black powder coat to match the block. Now, to cap off our carb, how about this ProFlow air cleaner? It's got a triangular design that clears most ignitions, including the GM HEI. Oh, by the way, it comes with a K&N element.
Now, I got to tell you, man, this is one good-looking rat motor, and I can't wait to get it bolted into my Bel Air.
Well, I guess that means we're not going to dyno it today because I got to cover a race.
Well, tell you what, in a couple of weeks, though, we will install it, then we're going to strap it to the dyno jet back there and take the Bel Air to the track for the ultimate test.
Good idea, but don't you make tracks. We got a lot more horsepower TV ahead. Get ready for a Motor City Muscle Car Shootout. It's our race of the week, and it's next.
Horsepower TV's Race of the Week is brought to you by Wyotech, the nation's premier technical training school.
This week, Horsepower's come to Motor City for a shootout among the top street fighters of NSCA. The air is good, humidity low, and so are the qualifying ETs. Here's Pro Outlaw record holder Mark D'Antoni soaring to a 680 qualifying run at 207 miles an hour. And another Outlaw stalwart, Steve Grebeck, with a 688. Pro Streeter Ross Stump mashes the gas here on a 691 pass. And NSCA points leader Pat Busey with a 682 at 206. But in addition to a weekend of fast times on the track, it was a weekend of special comebacks for several veteran street racers, like Danny Scott, last year's NSCA champ who came out of retirement with runs like this, sizzling 699 at 200 miles an hour. Another comeback kid was hometown hero Mike Moran, who quit racing briefly to start his own performance business. Mike was back in his 6-second form thanks in part to a new Craig Liberty Trans that he was debuting here at Stanton.
It's a little different. On a Linko, you have to grab each lever and pull them and let go of that one and pull another one. On this one, it's a vertigate shifter. You never take your hand off the shifter. It's forward, backward, forward, backward. What could be easier, right?
But the biggest comeback of all involves the owner of this 67 Camaro, a veteran racer who began the fight of his life at an event just like this back in the spring of 2000. Pro Street competitor Mark Tate was staging for a qualifying run in St. Louis when suddenly it happened. A nitrous fire that spread rampantly into the cockpit of his car as a stunned crowd helplessly watched.
I can remember being in the car. I can remember panicking to get out when I was engulfed with flames. I was hot breathing, but I don't know how I got out of the car.
After beating the odds, Mark faced months of painful recovery and therapy before a comeback that was nothing short of miraculous.
I got about 80% of my strength back, and I'm a very lucky person to be able to come through what I come through as unscathed as I did, so I'm happy.
He's amazing. He's our miracle man. Sure is. Yep.
Well, we have a lot to be thankful for. We got 13 grandchildren, 5 sons, and 4 daughters-in-laws, and
Oh, we had so much support from everybody. I mean, friends, relations, racers were great.
Mark's name's on the passenger side of his old Camaro now. That's because his longtime crew guy and protege Dale Pittman has taken over the wheel.
I put my family through enough, and I have no desire to get in the car again. And they deserve it. If they want to go out and have some fun with it, I don't care.
I've always been hanging back in the backlight in the shadows and waiting for any chances to drive it. I've always jumped at the opportunity like any person would, so it really worked out well that he gave me that opportunity.
Dale's running the 67 in NSCA's hottest class, Nostalgia Pro Street, with a full 16-car field this weekend. And here on his second qualifying run, Dale breaks into the 7-second club with a 786. But the top qualifier of the class would be a local racer, Darrell Thomas, driving his mentor's 69 Camaro with a nitrous-fed 632-inch motor.
My goal this weekend is to run fast and to take it back home in one piece.
Especially the one piece.
Well, here on Sunday, the air's still good, the track's great, should make for a fantastic finish. Hey, you guys ready for some eliminations?
Yeah!
Me too. Dale drove Mark's Camaro through more 7-second runs on his way to a spot in the finals of Nostalgia Pro Street. Meanwhile, it was D'Antoni here running a weekend best 679, heading toward a showdown against an also strong Griebeck. And at Pro Street, it was Busey paving his way to a face-off against the comeback kid himself, Mike Moran, here eliminating Scott. So, it's the Mid-Michigan Finals, and it's Moran winning Pro Street, while Busey seemed to have trouble planning the power. In Outlaw Street, it's another local hero, Griebeck, getting a hose shot to come out on top. And in the closest race of the event, Thomas inches past Pittman to win his first ever Nostalgia Pro Street contest.
Yeah, that's the tightest race I've been in a long time. It was so tight, I didn't know who had won down there.
Meanwhile, with his car and new driver coming in second, the biggest victory may belong to the racing old-timer who came to Michigan after one of the most incredible comebacks in life or the sport of drag racing. You still love racing?
Ah, yes. You have to like it. It's great. I don't know what I'm going to do now for kicks, so I guess just come to the track. I'm happy. I'm just happy to be here. I'm just.
HorsePower TV's Hot Parts, a close-up look at the latest in high-performance hardware.
A lot of people use gas logs in their fireplaces, but here's one you can use under your hood. It's Mallory's fuel return log that's adjustable to fit most dual inlet Holleys, including the Dominator. Also has an adjustable return regulator and anodized couplings for little flash as well as function. Now it's compatible for either gas or alcohol simply by swapping out the O-rings. Of course, you'll have to swap out some cash too, about $175.
Hey, when the pressure's on at the track, now you can check it with Moroso's high accuracy tire gauge. It's available with 15, 60, and 100 PSI limits, and the 4-inch face gives accurate incremental readings as low as 1/10 of a PSI. The housing is made from a high-tech plastic that absorbs shock to protect the internal mechanism, and if you need to adjust the pressure, you can do it with this built-in bleeder. Now, if you just got to have one of these for your toolbox, plan on bleeding your budget for about 140 bucks.
We're going to cap off hot parts with a look at these torque thrust wheel caps from American Racing. They're made from die-cast aluminum and available with a variety of logos to personalize your ride, whether it's a Mustang, goat, or any other road animal for that matter. If price matters though, well, plan on laying out about 42 bucks a piece.
Hey, now I was planning on laying out next week, but I guess we've got a show to do instead. Here's a look.
Sport compacts are hot and here to stay, but not just for racing. We'll give a CRX an amazing makeover with a cool body kit, a radical rear wing, and a lowering kit for a cool stance. In our race of the week, we'll head to Florida for an annual event of 9-second front-wheel drive racing, cooked out import show cars, and even some two-wheel thrills. And remember, high-performance fun is what this show is all about.
Hey man, hurry up, jump in, let's go check on that Bel Air. Come on.
For information about the products used in today's show and more, check us out online at HorsePowerTV.com. Horsepower TV is an RTM production.